YouTube, what's up? Back again for another daily fishing video here on Andrew Upshaw Fishing. Today's video, we're going to break down a technique and a rig that I use all across the country, especially on big fish fisheries that don't see a lot of finesse fishing pressure. But this is a rig that's definitely going to help you catch big fish. It's helped me catch big fish in a lot of different places. But hey, real fast though, guys, we're fastly approaching 20,000 subscribers. And honestly, by the time this video even posts, we might even have already hit it. So thank you all for who have subscribed in the last 24 hours and have been subscribed for me from the beginning. So thank you all for that. And if you haven't yet, go ahead and hit that sub button in the bottom right-hand corner. I really would appreciate it. And the number one thing I get asked all the time is, how can we help make your channel better? The number one thing is to like the video. If you can like this video, it would help me out wonders. So I really would appreciate if you did that. But let's go ahead and dive into a particular rig that I have used ever since the beginning, and that is the Ned rig. Everybody talks about a Ned rig. I mean, you watch any other YouTube video talking about finesse fishing, and everybody's going to talk about fishing a Ned rig because, guys, it's probably the number one talked about and fished finesse fishing tactic out there right now. But today's video is slightly different. I hope that you would come to expect that I don't just do the traditional stuff that everybody else does. I'm going to bring you techniques that not everybody wants to talk about. And today's technique is one of those. I'm going to bring to you what I consider the Texas Ned rig. Not to be confused with a Texas rig with a sliding bullet weight, but the actual Texas Ned rig, which is an oversized Ned rig. So is it a huge one? Is it one that's like 6 or 8 inches? No. This is what I would consider a Texas Ned rig. It can be anywhere between a 4 to 5 inch cut down piece of plastic, like an Ocho, a Cinco, something like that. Still on a jig head, but the way I fish it is really different than most. But what I do is I take a 5-inch Ocho and I cut about an inch off of it and I rig it on a jig head. This jig head here, I think, is an Outkast tackle. I really like a Weedless jig head, and this particular jig head I figured out to work really well for this particular technique. 3/16 in size is really what I like. But in this situation, I'm still fishing this rig on a spinning rod, and you'll see why here in just a minute. But you know, this rig, what makes this thing so special is you don't have to worry about just catching the smallest fish in the lake. And a lot of times a Ned rig will just get bit from everything, from crappie to bass that are this big. This one kind of eliminates that bite from just everything and kind of focuses more on the right size. So like that 2-pound plus size. Now granted, you're still going to catch some smaller ones on it, but I tend to catch bigger fish on this rig. Like some of my biggest Ned rig fish I've ever caught in my life have come on a cut down 5-inch Ocho on a bigger jig head. Now there's 2 ways to fish this. So you can either fish it on a weedless jig head like this, or you can rig it on this type of jig head. This right here is a stand-up shaky head. I have one right here that isn't rigged, so you can kind of see. So this is what the shaky head looks like. And I'll drop all these baits and jig heads in the description below so you know exactly what I'm talking about. But for this particular technique, this is the type of jig head that I like if I'm going to use an open hook. Now, I'm only using open hook if I'm not around any timber or brush piles or anything like that, cables, dock cables, whatever it may be. I really prefer the open hook if I can. Your hookup ratio is through the roof with the open hook, but we just aren't always in that situation where you can use one. And that's where I fall to the weed guard if need be, because the deal is it's still more forgiving than trying to punch a bait or punch a hook through a piece of plastic. Even Texposed, I don't care what anybody says, even Texposed, it still takes a lot more to set that hook. With that weed guard, it doesn't take hardly anything, so it's pretty simple as far as getting the hook set. But guys, let's just go ahead and dive right on into the technique. I'm going to jump on the front of the boat and I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. Alright guys, today I'm going to demonstrate for you how to use the Texas Ned rig. You know, there's a lot of different ways to fish baits, and maybe you've seen this technique before, but it's definitely something that I've used off and on through the years, and I think it really does work. First thing is, you don't want to make a really long cast. I mean, at most, you want to make about a 15 to 20 yard cast. The whole idea behind this rig is that it's a target rig for me. I'm really targeting real specific stuff, whether it's a stump, a laydown, a rock, a piece of concrete, whatever it may be. And the deal is a lot of times those types of pieces of cover have really small concentrations of fish, but a lot of times they're really consistent. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cast that Texas Ned rig out there. And the reason I use this is to eliminate the small fish more than anything. And I really believe that if there's a big fish sitting on a piece of cover, that this bait is gonna help me catch them. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let that bait get all the way to the bottom. That's the benefit of using that yellow braid. And I'm just gonna drag it up to the piece of cover. You always wanna cast it a little bit past the cover. You don't wanna cast right on top of it. You'll cast a little bit past it, and you drag it. And what I do when I'm fishing, I always envision what my bait is doing on the bottom, or if there's fish around, you know, like you always kind of get that tense feeling, like you have a buck walk out and you're like, man, I think there's a deer here, and then you finally see one. I get that same kind of feeling when I'm fishing. If I'm feeling the right kind of cover, or maybe a little bit of pebble on the bottom, or, you know, I just feel like I'm in the strike zone, I'm gonna drag that bait all the way up to where I feel like the fish may be sitting, and then I'm gonna give it a quick little jerk, and then I'm gonna let the bait fall on slack line. And then I'm gonna keep dragging it, and I'll drag it a little bit more and drag it through the cover, around the cover. And then when I feel like I'm in that strike zone again, I'm gonna give it another little jerk and let it fall. And this is once again the benefit of the yellow braid. If there is a fish and it eats it on the drop, you're gonna see it before you're gonna feel it. And a lot of times that's gonna be the difference between you catching that fish and not. So you just sit there, drag it, and you jerk it. You don't want to just keep jerking it all the time. You just want to kind of use it as a reaction strike. And a lot of times those fish will actually, when you jerk it and let it fall, sometimes you won't even feel them. And when you jerk it again, all of a sudden it'll just be heavy, and you just got to finish the jerk into a hook set, and you just got to be ready to roll, because at any time that fish could be on there and you got to reel them in. But, you know, it's really important to pay attention to those little bitty details like that when you're fishing this particular rig, because at any point you could be catching a fish or having one looking at it and you're not really paying attention, or, you know, it's hot outside, whatever it may be. So if you do this little technique, if you just try it, drag, and then give it a real sharp jerk, I think you'd be surprised about the amount of bites you get and the amount of fish that you catch the next time you're on the water. Like I said, guys, you can do this in a lot of different situations, in a lot of different areas. If you try it out, I know you're going to have a lot of fun. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned how to fish this Texas Ned rig, this oversized Ned rig, to catch more and bigger bass the next time you're on the water. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on the next one.